Imagine like unlocking your family history, going way back centuries, even when you just don't have any of the traditional records anymore. The paper trail has kind of vanished.
Yeah.
What if the key to all of that lies within your ancestors' very bones?
Oh,
That's what we're diving into today.
that's amazing.
This revolutionary technique that uses strontium isotopes to trace ancestral origins.
Wow.
And it's especially helpful for those whose family trees were really disrupted by the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
So we're going to be taking a look at excerpts from a National Geographic article called The Truth in Bone, Finding the Origins of Enslaved Africans.
Great.
So if you've ever, hit a brick wall researching your family's past, get ready for some serious eye-opening insights.
Yeah, so what's really fascinating about this technique is strontium. It's a common element found in bedrock, and it acts like a hidden signature in a way.
Okay.
It gets absorbed by plants and animals, and eventually gets into human teeth, too. And it creates this sort of geographic fingerprint that's tied to where someone spent their childhood.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't just some cool science fact, right? This has real implications for people, especially descendants of enslaved Africans who are trying to piece together, their heritage and their history.
Yeah.
The article even features Andre Kearns, who was able to trace one side of his family back to the 1600s.
Wow.
But he just hit a wall. He just couldn't go any further.
Right.
Traditional methods like census records just weren't enough.
Yeah, that's a common roadblock. Unfortunately, traditional genealogy relies so much on documentation,
Right.
which is often missing or just doesn't exist for enslaved populations.
Yeah. And so many people, I feel like, turn to genetic testing services.
Yeah.
Things like Ancestry DNA or 23andMe to sort of fill in those gaps.
Right.
But even those have limitations, don't they?
They do.
Especially when it comes to African ancestry.
Yeah.
Exactly. While genetic testing can give you like a broad picture, kind of the big overview, its accuracy really depends on having a diverse and representative data set.
I see.
And currently, those data sets lack enough samples from Africa,
Okay.
meaning that pinpointing specific origins on the continent can be really tough.
So it's more about getting a general sense
Yeah.
of where your heritage is rather than specific locations.
Exactly.
And then there's also the whole issue of what those results actually even mean.
Yes.
I mean, like sharing DNA with someone from thousands of years ago
Right.
doesn't mean they're your direct ancestor.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction a lot of people miss. That
Right.
it's crucial to remember that genetic ancestry is about identifying shared DNA.
Okay.
And that can span like a huge time frame,
Yeah.
Genealogical ancestry, on the other hand, is focused on tracing those direct family lines.
Okay.
And that requires a whole different approach.
Okay. So this is where strontium isotopes come in.
Instead of just relying on DNA or, those scarce records, it uses this unique geographic fingerprint
Yes.
that's locked within our teeth.
Exactly.
Tell me more about how that works.
Okay, so think of it this way. Let's say someone grew up drinking water that came from a region that was rich in limestone. The strontium ratios in that water would be totally different from someone who lived, near volcanic rock.
Right.
And those differences, they get absorbed into the food chain.
Okay.
And eventually they end up in a person's teeth.
Wow.
And that creates a lasting record of their geographical origins.
So it's like their childhood environment is literally imprinted in their bones?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Wow. But how do scientists actually use this to trace ancestry?
So there's this anthropologist, Vicky Oles.
Okay.
She led a team that created a really detailed map of strontium signatures across sub-Saharan Africa.
Wow.
So now researchers can compare the strontium isotope ratios they find in skeletal remains to this map and narrow down potential origins with some pretty incredible precision.
So instead of just saying someone's ancestors were from West Africa,
Right.
they could potentially pinpoint a region or even a village.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And it's already showing some really fascinating results.
Wow.
For example, there have been studies of remains in Charleston, South Carolina, and Brazil
Okay.
that have used this strontium map to trace origins back to specific areas within Africa,
That's amazing.
connecting those individuals to a more precise location in their past.
That's remarkable. It's like restoring pieces of a fragmented history.
It is.
But I imagine this technique isn't, like a magic bullet.
Right.
What are some of its limitations?
Well, it's really powerful, but you have to remember that strontium values can vary even within a single region.
Okay.
So while we can narrow down possibilities, significantly pinpointing an exact birthplace with absolute certainty isn't always possible.
So it's more about probabilities than pinpoint accuracy. So it's more about adding another piece to the puzzle, right? Combining strontium analysis with other evidence, like oral histories, historical records, even genetic testing, a more complete picture.
Yeah, each piece of information helps refine the story.
Right.
Bringing us closer to a more nuanced understanding of these individual journeys.
This is already so intriguing, and I can't wait to hear more about how this technology is being used to illuminate the past. But before we go any further into its applications, let's pause here and come back to explore more of the possibilities and the ethical considerations of this really revolutionary technique.
Sounds good.
So we've been talking about how strontium isotopes can unlock these secrets hidden within our bones, revealing our ancestral origins with this incredible precision.
It's amazing.
It's already proving to be so valuable for people who are, tracing their lineage back to Africa.
Yeah.
But this technology has potential far beyond that, right?
Oh, absolutely. The beauty of strontium isotope analysis is its versatility.
Okay.
It's like having this key that can open all these different doors to the past. And we're starting to explore, what it can really do.
So what other mysteries could this unlock? I mean, are we talking ancient migrations, lost settlements, maybe even historical cold cases?
You're thinking along the right lines. Skeletal remains are often our only link to those really distant periods.
Right.
And by analyzing their strontium signatures, we can start to reconstruct the movements of entire populations across huge stretches of time.
It's like mapping out the journeys of our ancestors.
Exactly.
Seeing how they interacted with each other and how cultures spread and evolved.
Precisely. Imagine tracing the routes of prehistoric nomads across continents.
Wow.
Or pinpointing the origins of people buried in unmarked graves. Giving them back a piece of their identity.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, and strontium isotopes can even help us understand ancient trade routes.
Really?
Yeah, because the movement of goods often involved the movement of people, too.
Right.
And they left behind these telltale traces in their bones.
That's fascinating. It's like a piecing together this giant historical jigsaw puzzle, connecting individuals and events across time and space.
Exactly. And as with any powerful tool, we need to be mindful of how we use it.
Right.
Using strontium isotope analysis, especially with ancestral remains, raises some really important questions about, how we interpret the data and the context surrounding it.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of scientific discovery.
Oh, yeah.
But we need to be careful about jumping to conclusions based just on strontium data.
Exactly. Strontium analysis is a powerful tool, but it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
We need to integrate it with other lines of evidence.
And what?
Like historical records, archaeological findings, even linguistic analysis.
Okay.
To get a truly comprehensive picture.
So it's about collaboration, right? Bringing together all these experts from different fields to interpret the data responsibly.
Yeah.
And make sure we're not misrepresenting the past.
Absolutely. And we also need to be mindful of how we communicate these findings to the public.
Right.
Avoiding sensationalism or oversimplification.
Yeah.
It's about presenting a nuanced and accurate picture of the past.
Right.
Recognizing that history is rarely black and white.
That's such a crucial point. We've seen how easily scientific findings can be misinterpreted or even misused.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with sensitive topics like ancestry and cultural heritage.
Sure.
We need to approach this work with humility and respect for the complexities of the past.
I couldn't agree more. It's about striking that balance between scientific inquiry and a deep respect for the cultures and communities whose histories we're trying to understand.
And that respect needs to extend to descendant communities as well.
Absolutely.
Their voices and perspectives should be such an integral part of the research process.
100%.
Making sure that their ancestor stories are told responsibly and ethically.
You're right. Involving descendant communities goes beyond just getting consent.
Right.
It's about actively engaging them in the research design, the interpretation of the findings, even the dissemination of information.
Okay.
Recognizing that they hold valuable knowledge and insights that can really enrich our understanding of the past.
It sounds like we're moving towards a more collaborative approach to studying the past.
I think so.
Recognizing that science isn't just about uncovering facts, but it's also about understanding the human stories behind those facts.
Exactly. And those human stories are what really resonate with us.
Yeah.
That's what connects us to the past. It's what makes history come alive. And it reminds us that we're all part of this larger narrative that spans generations.
All right, so we've talked about this amazing technology, its potential to rewrite history,
Right.
and the importance of approaching it responsibly.
Yeah.
But what does this mean for our listeners who are interested in, exploring their own family histories? Where do they even begin?
Well, if you're intrigued by your own family history,
Hmm.
particularly if your ancestry involves the transatlantic slave trade,
Hmm.
strontium isotope analysis is a fascinating avenue to explore.
Okay.
But it's important to start with the fundamentals.
I'd imagine most people aren't just going to jump straight into strontium analysis.
Right.
It sounds like there are some essential steps to take first.
Exactly. Begin by exploring traditional genealogical methods.
Okay.
Dive into those online databases, search for historical records, talk to your older family members,
Yeah.
gather whatever stories and clues you can find.
Right.
Those family stories can be incredibly valuable starting points. They offer leads and insights that you might not find in any official records.
I know from personal experience that talking to older relatives can be so rewarding.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing what they remember and the stories they can share.
Absolutely. It's about piecing together that puzzle, using every tool you have available.
Right.
And once you've kind of exhausted those initial avenues, you might consider genetic testing
Okay.
to gain a broader understanding of your ancestral origins.
Right.
Just remember those limitations we talked about earlier, particularly regarding the representation of African populations in those databases.
Right. Genetic testing can give you a good overview, but it's not a magic bullet for pinpointing specific locations within Africa.
Exactly. If you're determined to dig deeper, and strontium analysis seems like a promising path. There are a few things to keep in mind. It's a relatively specialized field.
Okay.
So finding researchers or labs that offer this kind of analysis takes a bit of work.
So it's not something you can just Google and instantly find a service provider.
Right. It's a bit more niche than that.
Yeah.
But the resources are out there.
Okay.
Start by searching online for universities and research institutions that specialize in areas like archaeological science,
Okay.
bioarchaeology, or isotope geochemistry. A lot of universities have websites dedicated to their research labs and projects.
Right.
And you might find contact information for researchers who are working with strontium isotope analysis.
So it's a matter of doing some research, finding the right experts and reaching out to see if this type of analysis is even possible for your situation.
Exactly. You can also contact genealogical societies
Okay.
or organizations that focus on African diaspora history. They often have resources and networks that can connect you with researchers in the field.
That's great.
It might take some effort, but for those who are really invested in uncovering their past, it can be an incredibly rewarding journey.
It's remarkable to think that a technique like this can reconnect people to a past that was intentionally fragmented and obscured.
Yeah,
It's like a powerful tool for reclaiming those lost histories.
it is, and it underscores the resilience of the human spirit, our desire to understand where we come from and to honor the legacies of those who came before us.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
But beyond the scientific advancements and the historical revelations, it's crucial to remember that human element at the heart of it all.
Right. Technology can provide these incredible insights, but ultimately it's the stories, the connections, the shared experiences that really captivate us.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about data points and isotopes. We're talking about people's lives, their journeys, and the threads that weave us all together.
I love that.
It's amazing to think that just one element like strontium can hold so much historical information, connecting us back to the journeys of those who came before us. It makes you wonder, where could this technology go next?
Yeah, the potential applications for strontium isotope analysis seem almost limitless.
Yeah.
We've talked about its impact on genealogy and tracing, ancestral origins. But researchers are always finding new and innovative ways to use it.
I can imagine it being really useful for archaeology, especially when you're dealing with sites where you just don't have any traditional records.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine excavating an ancient burial site with no written records or artifacts to give you any context. Strontium analysis could help you determine where those individuals came from,
Oh, wow.
shedding light on migration patterns, trade routes, even cultural interactions between different groups.
So it's like filling in those historical gaps, creating a more complete picture of the past, even when the physical evidence is limited.
Exactly, and it's not just about the distant past.
Yeah.
Either strontium isotope analysis could even be used to understand more recent historical events,
Okay.
like identifying the remains of soldiers killed in battle, or figuring out where individuals buried in unmarked graves originated from.
That's incredible. It's like giving a voice to the people who were lost or forgotten, helping to restore their place in history.
It is, and it shows the power of science to illuminate the human story, even in the darkest of times. As the technology gets better and the strontium isotope map becomes more refined, who knows what other mysteries we'll be able to solve.
It's exciting to think about all the possibilities, but I think it's also important to remember that technology is only one part of the equation. We need human curiosity, careful interpretation, and a deep respect for the past to really make these discoveries meaningful.
I agree. Completely. Technology gives us the tools. But it's our responsibility to use them ethically and responsibly. We need to be mindful of the stories we create. Make sure that different perspectives are included, and always approach these investigations with humility and a sense of wonder.
It's like we're all explorers in a way, piecing together the fragments of the past to try to create a more complete and nuanced understanding of who we are and where we come from. It's a journey that requires curiosity, open-mindedness, and a willingness to challenge what we think we know.
Well said. And as we continue to explore these uncharted territories of history, I think the most amazing discoveries are still ahead of us. The past is full of stories that haven't been told, just waiting to be uncovered and shared with the world.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive, full of surprising insights and thought-provoking questions. It's amazing to think that something as simple as the strontium in our teeth can unlock such profound historical mysteries.
It really shows how interconnected everything is, from the bedrock beneath our feet to the stories in our bones. The past is all around us, just waiting to be discovered.
So for our listeners who are inspired to go on their own explorations of the past, remember that every family has a story to tell. Every ancestor has a journey waiting to be uncovered, and sometimes the most unexpected clues can lead to the most remarkable discoveries.
Keep asking questions, keep searching, and keep sharing those stories with the world, because the more we understand our past, the more we can appreciate how rich and complex the human experience really is.